There's no need for Donald Trump to pardon himself. I know that because Donald Trump's been tweeting it all weekend. Okay, but before we get to that, let's find out if maybe there is some issue with Russia, because I'm led to believe by a lot of people on the right and some on the left that there's no evidence of Russian meddling at all. There's no evidence. Really? Last week at the Aspen Security Forum, 4 of Donald Trump's top intelligence and national security officials, including Mike Pompeo, the CIA director, said they were absolutely convinced that the Russians were behind the effort to influence the election. That is not someone from the Obama administration. That is not a Democrat. That is a super hardcore right-winger appointed by Donald Trump, saying absolutely convinced that the Russians meddled. Well, let's go to Dan Coats. He's the national intelligence director that puts all those agencies together. Hey, Dan Coats, is there any dissent at all on whether Russia meddled in the elections? Quote, there is no dissent. But why do you think they're doing it? And is this overhyped, not a big deal? Quote, they are trying to undermine Western democracy. That seems like kind of a big deal, okay? So if you're still in the camp of like, no evidence at all, it's just all made up by Democrats. Weird that some of the most virulent right-wingers in the country who are appointed by Trump have joined in that analysis. It's almost as if the intelligence agencies do have evidence. Joe, but they didn't share all their evidence publicly. Maybe the Republicans and Democrats have decided randomly to make everything up and just, maybe. Well, if you're not concerned by it, you're apparently alone because Donald Trump is. So he then tweets out, it's very sad the Republicans, even some that were carried over the line on my back, do very little to protect their president, okay? So in other words, come on guys, who's got my back here? The guys I appointed, now Sessions is recusing himself. I'm thinking of firing that son of a bitch, his job was to cover up my crimes. And then now Dan Coats and Mike Pompeo, and they all say the Russians meddled in the election. God damn it, I gotta talk about pardons. Then he says, while all agree the US president has the complete power to pardon, why think of that when only crime so far is leaks against us? Fake news. But dude, nobody was talking about pardons until you said it. So I guess he's thinking of pardoning him. So now, like, remember guys, I mean, even if I am super guilty of helping the Russians meddle in this election, I can pardon myself. That's not a winning argument, but he's too stupid to realize that. The only reason to tweet that is to be like, I mean, this is all a waste of time. I'll just pardon myself at the end. You know what I'm saying? You idiot, why did you bring that up? You're so stupid. Okay, but that's okay. His lawyer, Jay Sekulow, says pardons are not on the table. Well, curious the president brought it up. Okay, now let's find out if pardons are on the table. Now we next go to Sekulow again. Pardons are not on the table. Let's watch.
I want to be clear on this, George. We have not and continue to not have conversations with the president of the United States regarding pardons. Pardons have not been discussed and pardons are not on the table. We're not researching the issue because the issue of pardons is not on the table. There's nothing to pardon from.
Okay, how can you, here, we have the quote. Actually, let me go to graphic 14 here. We have, this is from that thing you just saw. We have not, and I continue to not have conversations with the president of the United States about pardons. How do you continue not to have a conversation? Like, we're not talking about pardons. I mean, I don't know who brought up pardons, the president did. I don't know, but that's why I continue to not have conversations about pardons with the president. If you say so, brother. Now let's go to the new communications director, Scaramucci. So I'm sure the Mooch, as he's known, will clarify all this. Let's watch.
So he's talking about pardoning, so who's he thinking of pardoning?
Jake, let's cut through it all, okay? You and I right here, let's cut through it all. You're basically saying that tweet is suggesting that the president is going to pardon himself and every one of his family members.
I asked you.
What are you suggesting?
I'm saying
he's not going to do that.
No, Anthony, I am suggesting one thing. The president tweeted about pardons, and I'm asking you, who's he thinking about pardoning? That's all I'm suggesting. So why raise it?
The president's thinking about pardoning nobody because it has been coming up a lot. There's an undercurrent of nonsensical stuff.
Because he has asked advisors about it.
There's an undercurrent of nonsensical stuff. that you brought up. The president tweeted about it. He's like, I mean, I could pardon people. The president has complete power to pardon people, but who's bringing up this nonsense? Who is it? Who is it? I want names. Okay. So, I don't know why you're bringing it up, Jake. All right, finally back to Jay Sekulow, Trump's lawyer. Clearly, the Constitution does vest a plenary pardon power within the presidency. Wait, I thought you guys were not having a conversation about it. That seems like Scaramucci kind of admitted that they were having conversations about it, and you just admitted that you were having conversations about it, and you just doubled down on what President Trump said. Now remember, everybody, I mean, he can pardon anyone he wants, including the president. Now, whether he can actually do that is a different question, besides which, if you're already trying to pardon yourself from horrific crimes committed against the American people, there's a decent chance you're going to get impeached. So just keep that in mind. It's like, oh, God damn it, why didn't anybody tell me about impeachment? You know, the president has the power to stop an impeachment. Actually, no, you don't. You don't have that power. I don't know, why is anybody bringing up this nonsense? He hasn't said that part about the impeachment yet. Hold. So obviously, they're worried that it's so bad that President Trump might have to pardon himself for his own crimes before they lock him up. Lock him up. Forget the presidency. He's worried about crimes that he could be charged with. Damn. Support independent media. Come join us at the Young Turks. TYTnetwork.com/join.